What's going on, everyone? I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves today. And now it's time to cover another DVD. As you guys are aware, after I reviewed a good amount of door releases, we're taking a bit of a break from reviewing them so we can focus on other releases. And because I'm in a bit of a little Einstein's mood, I think it's time we cover the first release that purely contains episodes from Season 2. So, the release that I'm going to be covering is the very unique release that is the last to contain 3 episodes on it, Race for Space. So, without further delay, let's begin with the release history. Race for Space was first released on DVD on February 19th, 2008 by Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment. Here's a little fun fact. This release, along with Fire Truck Rocket's Blast Off and Animal Expedition, were the first releases that I ever got from my local Value Village back in 2016, which was some time after I got We're a Team Up for Adventure on DVD to start off my DVD collection as a whole. Also to mention that there was this poster or advertisement that advertised the release right before it was to be released on February 19th. Also to mention that this release is the last one to feature 3 episodes on it if you were to exclude Go to America, Go to Europe, and Go to Africa that would be released later on. Following the release of Flight of the Instrument Fairies, the DVDs would contain 4 episodes instead of 3. But continuing, the DVD was released one other time, that being on August 5th, 2008, also by Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment. Afterwards, it just disappeared, and this would be the last time a DVD from Little Einsteins would be re-released, as far as I'm aware. And let's not forget that you can also find Race for Space in a 3 DVD pack, which is the second 3 DVD pack for the series, which also contained The Legend of the Golden Pyramid and Rocket's Firebird Rescue, which were released in the DVD pack with Race for Space. One last thing to mention is that on this DVD are 2 bonus shorts, which are Race for Safety and Buckle Down for Safety from Lou and Lou Safety Patrol. For the record, I'm not going to be covering those shorts in this video since this is purely going to focus on the episodes that are on the release. And that's it for the history, so now let's move on to the episodes. So, Race for Space features 3 episodes from Season 2 of Little Einsteins, and our stories for the release are The Treasure Behind the Little Red Door, Superfast, and The Great Sky Race Rematch. So, let's begin with our first episode, The Treasure Behind the Little Red Door. When Rocket finds a map that leads to a treasure behind a red door in Hawaii, Big Jet steals the map in order to claim the treasure for himself. So the team races off into Hawaii to get to the treasure before Big Jet does, while also avoiding his trickery, which involves a volcano, a wavy sea, and a path blocked by Big Jet, which results in them taking a detour. In the end, they make it to the little red door before Big Jet, and they find that the treasure behind it is spider webs. So, for the start of the release, this is a very unique episode. I do have some good fond memories with it as I remember watching it, but nowadays I don't really see it as a good story, despite because I feel like there are other good treasure related stories in this series. However, I can say that I still like it, don't get me wrong, but there are a few things about this episode that hold it back. And one of those things is Big Jet, and I've got quite a little bit to say about him. For starters, I don't really like him in this episode. Think of what you got here. He's trying to sabotage the team's chances of getting to the little red door before him so he can claim the treasure, and messes with a volcano and tries to mess with the sea in order to prevent them from getting near, and even blocks their path later on. And all of this is done just so he can see a bunch of spider webs. While admittedly that is a unique way to while that is a good treasure visually, I do think it is a bit confusing because he's made trying to sabotage them just so that he can get to some spider webs behind a door. In my opinion, this is one of the examples of an episode that features a character who tries to play a antagonistic role only to become pointless by the end of the story. And this is similar to what I said about Swiper during my review of Dora Saves the Game, where he's featured near the tail end of the episode, but he turns out to be a very pointless character. And while I still don't like him in this episode, I actually think the episode itself is amazing because there are a lot of things that save it. While as with this episode, I just think of it as decent but still pointless on featuring Big Jet in this way. I don't really know how to properly explain it, but there's a point I'm trying to make. However, there are a few things that save this episode, and it's the following. It was cool that they were able to choose the location for this episode, and I'm glad that it's Hawaii. And I don't think it could have worked any better with other destinations. And I really think they should have featured Hawaii again, even whether if it's before or after this episode. There's also the destinations in this episode, which are pretty unique, and don't get me wrong, I do think they work for Hawaii. And then there's this, that during this episode, the team manages to work together in some way, regardless of what it is. If you were to watch this episode, you'd notice that each of the team members gets some focus, and they manage to help Rocket trying to get past certain obstacles that Big Jet throws at them in order to get to the little red door to see the spider webs. That kind of credit cannot go unmentioned. I might even go so far to say that the team working together is similar to an episode like Thomas, Percy, and the Mail Train, where Thomas and Percy try to achieve their goal of, of proving that they're very useful. And while some people might not see the similarities, the working together as a team idea is something that I can really give a lot of credit for, which is why I like Thomas, Percy, and the Mail Train. But you'll see my full thoughts on it when I eventually get to it. And as for the team, I can honestly give them a lot of credit for what is done in this episode. Overall, there is not much left to say about this episode other than it's just good and it's a very run-of-the-mill type story of the series. It features the team working together in order to achieve a goal, and it's pretty nice to see them working together, which is something I can give credit to. And while Big Jet is very pointless for this episode, his inclusion isn't totally bad. And while some people may question the treasure, I honestly think it's pretty unique, as nature really is a legendary treasure, if you really think about it. And don't judge me. I feel, even though I'm not a fan of spiders myself, I do think the webs in this episode are pretty amazing. Overall, the treasure behind the little red door is nothing too crazy, but I like it for what it is. And as the starter episode, it's definitely a good one, and I give it an 8 out of 10. Now we have our second episode, Superfast. After refueling Rocket with music gas at the music gas station, the team encounter the 3 pigs flying their planes, but each one experiences a problem that involves their planes being stuck in gear at the speed that they are going. So the team chases after the pigs when they chase after the blue plane in Peru, the green plane in China, and the yellow plane in the Crab Nebula. In the end, the team manages to save the pigs thanks to Rocket going at different speeds, including super fast. So this one is a pretty unique one. I remember watching this episode and I was fascinated by what I saw, but there are some things about this episode that cannot go unnoticed. First up, this episode is the episode that introduces us to Rocket's speed meter, which it has 4 different speeds dependent on how fast Rocket goes. And it also introduces us to music gas. On the topic of that, I like how the music gas is presented in this episode, as well as how it's presented. And I'm not sure if it's a regular fuel in this world or an alternative fuel to the current ones, but I really like it for what it is. At the same time, the music gas station is also a unique one-time destination, showing us where the gas comes from. However, it was not brought up anywhere in the first episode of Season 2, Quincy and the Magic Instruments. So I'm going to assume that Superfast takes place after Magic Instruments, and Superfast also takes place before the rest of Season 2. I know that might sound a bit critical, but some consistency never hurts once in a while. But back to the episode, I do still think it's a good episode, but I don't think it's a grand one as many people want to make it out. For starters, this episode features the pigs in trouble when their planes get stuck in gear and the team has to save them. However, they have to save them one by one while also leaving their planes behind. All I can say is that I hope those planes land safely. However, the big problem with this episode is the fact that they have to save all three pigs, but one at a time. I know that the reason for this has to do with the music gas and the speed meter in this episode, but I feel like rescuing all three at once would have been a little bit quicker. And this idea also worked better in the season 1 episode, Annie's Solo Mission, where she had to save June, Leo, and Quincy when they were in trouble. And she managed to save them as a group rather than individually. And while some people might not see the similarities between the two, there are similarities, and the big difference in terms of likability is that Annie's Solo Mission is one of, if not my favorite episode of season 1, because the idea of saving 3 people works better here. But in an episode like Superfast, it just doesn't feel the same. And I feel like it doesn't work like Annie's Solo Mission did, mostly because it took one lot of 3 and made it 3 lots of 1. However, there are a few things that save this episode, and that is the following. I like the idea that the creators came up with while trying to decide on what words to use for the speed meters, which I do admit, and the speeds are pretty unique, with Adagio being the slowest speed, Moderato being medium speed, Allegro being the regular fast, and Presto being the super fast. I actually like this, and I'm glad that it stuck around for the entirety of season 2. The idea featuring the concept of music gas was pretty cool, and the music gas station was a nice way to feature it. And the destinations that the team goes to are pretty amazing, and which are Peru, which I will admit which is pretty amazing, China, which is very unique, and it's an interesting way to feature the art of the day during this episode. And last but not least, we have the Crab Nebula. And I don't care what anyone says, but it's funny to see a plane flying in space. It may be unrealistic in the real world, but it really does sell the episode. Overall, while many people do consider this to be a very good episode, I consider it to be good but not great. And although I do get what the episode was about and what it was trying to accomplish, I wouldn't consider it an episode that I would watch regularly. However, it's still okay in my book, but unless I re-review this release sometime in the near future, it will be a long time before I see this episode again. You know how I said an episode like Rocket Safari doesn't really work? Well, I'm gonna retract that and flip it over here and say it over here. And I know that might surprise a lot of people, but we'll see what happens and if Rocket Safari earns a lot more respect the next time round. Overall, Superfast is a good episode, but it's not a great one. And I give it a 7.5 out of 10. And last but not least is the final episode of the release, the Great Sky Race Rematch. It's the day of the second annual Great Sky Race, which takes place a year after the events of the first one, and Rocket is determined to defend his win and get to and win for the second year in a row. But Big Jet is determined to win the race by any means necessary, which also includes breaking the flying button inside Rocket in order to make sure he can't fly and win the race. And while the sky race is going on, Quincy tries to fix the flying button, while Rocket continues on in the race as a submarine, a pogo jumper, and a locomotive. Once the flying button is fully fixed, Rocket is finally able to fly again and competes in the rest of the race as a flying vehicle and manages to win for the second year in a row. So, as a closing episode, I think this episode is a pretty good one. If anything, it's the best episode of the release alone. For starters, it's great to see that they remembered the Great Sky Race and made it a major part of the episode. What I mean by this is that in the episode Hungarian Hiccups, where the Great Sky Race was first seen and mentioned, it was just a minor plot point for an episode because the main focus of Hungarian Hiccups was the team trying to get rid of Rocket's hiccups before the race itself. However, as opposed to that episode, the Great Sky Race is a major plot point in the Great Sky Race rematch, and there is a lot to go over with this episode. For starters, Big Jet is still bitter from the win that he should have been his instead of Rocket's from the year prior, and wants to win by any means necessary, which includes sabotage of the team. And while I can see why he wanted to wanted to get the win, breaking the flying button was kind of a cocky move on his part, because any sort of sabotage like that could have gotten him disqualified. But we got 23 minutes in this episode, and it's not going to fill itself without the main villain. But that isn't the major issue of this episode. The major issue is what Big Jet does during the race. I can give him a free pass for what happens in the Pacific Ocean because it had to feature the art of the episode in some way and he doesn't mess with anything. So I can give him a free pass for that. However, he stops during the race to spray snow onto mountains and bends the rails in order to in the Sahara Desert in order to sabotage Rocket and the team. My problem with this is this. If Big Jet is so determined to win the race, why didn't he just race forward knowing that Rocket can't fly? Because that type of mentality is something that cannot go uncritiqued. And that major plot hole makes you question Big Jet's logic in the episode, especially because he broke the flying button and he could just fly on ahead while knowing that Rocket and the team could just catch up in half the time, given how fast a jet is compared to the submarine, the pogo jumper, and the train option. And all of this got me thinking about the episode got me thinking about the movie Herbie Fully Loaded. And it got me thinking about the main villain of the movie, Trip Murphy. The reason why I'm bringing this up is this. Big Jet in the Great Sky Race rematch and Trip Murphy in Herbie Fully Loaded both have the same are both similar in this way. They try to sabotage their competition in order to achieve their goals. If one were to check out watch the episode and the movie, they definitely are going to see some similarities. An antagonist-like character is determined to win a race, but while haste by any means necessary, they try to sabotage the hero of the story, with Big Jet trying to taking breaks in between to sabotage Rocket and the team, and Trip Murphy trying to wreck Maggie Payton. They end up screwing themselves over due to their actions, with Big Jet not thinking his plan all the way through, and Trip Murphy wrecking himself, resulting in himself being flipping over and going upside down. And the hero or heroes end up winning the race in the end. To me, that is a very similar story idea. And it's pretty crazy to see that Big Jet basically screwed himself over because of his own methods and ideas. And now, I'm definitely thinking I should watch Herbie Fully Loaded sometime in the near future, but we're getting off topic. I know comparing Big Jet and Trip Murphy in two separate forms of media seems a bit odd, but hey, that's just how the story goes. Aside from that, there are some very good highlights about this episode that save it from being terrible. And they are actually considered to be the best highlights in any episode, regardless if it's this one or another one. For starters, I really like the determination that Rocket has to compete in the race despite not being able to fly, and the team supporting him through the entirety of it is also pretty unique. It's also nice to know that some continuity carried over from season 1. And it really, although the episode might seem a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with the events of Hungarian Hiccups, which I recommend you watch first. Even though this episode could work as its own story, even though it gets some stuff wrong. I also like the fact that each member of the team got to do something, whether if it's helping Rocket get past obstacles or trying to correct course when Big Jet tries to sabotage the race for them, most especially fixing the flying button during the race. And the last thing I want to mention, which is the biggest highlight of the episode, is easily Quincy. Think of what you got here. He's basically trying to reassemble the flying button throughout the entire episode, and he manages to do it right after they complete their run through the Sahara Desert. It really does show that Quincy really does work as a major character for a story, even though the four little Einsteins and Rocket all share the main character role. Overall, there's not much left to cover with this episode, other than it's fantastic. Rocket managed to get the win over Big Jet. All 4 team members managed to contribute to helping Rocket to win the race. And at the end of the day, it was a great way to feature the Great Sky Race as a major plot point for this episode. While it might seem a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with the events of Hungarian Hiccups, which I'd recommend you watch first, I definitely think it's a good enough episode. And as a closing episode, I really think it really does make the grade. Overall, the Great Sky Race rematch is a blast from start to finish, and I give it an 8.5 out of 10. So what are my final thoughts on Race for Space? If it isn't already clear, this release is fantastic. Back then, when I first got it, it was a pretty good one. And while my opinions on these episodes have changed over time, this is still a pretty good release. And if one were to exclude Go to America, Europe, and Africa, this really is a true last hurrah for the DVDs from the series that feature only 3 episodes before they switched to 4 episodes for Flight of the Instrument Fairies going forward. For the final release to feature just 3 episodes, it was a solid way to close that run out. And as for all the episodes on it, while there are some that I would replace to fit the theme better, it's still a good release regardless. And who knows, maybe if I re-review this release, I will show my ideas for what episodes could have been featured here. But that's a story for another time. Now, how do I feel about this release? And do I recommend it? Well, I think it makes the grade just fine. It's not perfect, but it definitely is good. And I definitely recommend it for all fans of the series. And that's gonna do it for this review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more VHS and DVD reviews and other home media related content. And be sure to check out my other reviews that are in the playlist down below in the description. So, what release am I going to cover for the next review? Well, Halloween is approaching, and I think it's time we cover one release that is centered around the holiday. So next time, I'm going to be covering some of the best adventures from the unique Tupi and Binu DVD, Pumpkin Party. Just a warning in advance, the earliest that this review will be out will be Halloween Day. But if it's not released then, it will come out as early as early November. So stay tuned for that. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next VHS and DVD review.